Hello bookish people, it's Brittany, and today I'm going to be talking about the 20 books I want to read in 2020. Now you may be thinking, Brittany, this video is coming out really late. Shouldn't this have been at the beginning of the year? And well, you're right, it should have been, but I wasn't making videos then, and I want to share with you the books that I'm really going to try to prioritize reading this year. And I have to say that there are more than 20 books on this list because some of them are series, and I have considered the whole series as like one thing. The first books I'm going to be talking about are books that I have already started the series for and want to continue on with. And the first one I'm going to be talking about is The Girl in the Tower and The Winter of the Witch, which are the second and third book in the Winternight trilogy by Katherine Arden. I read The Bear and the Nightingale for the first time in 2019. I finished it in 2019 and I loved it, and I meant to continue on, but 2019 wasn't a great reading year, so I didn't. So I reread it this year. The Bear and the Nightingale follows Vasya as she grows up in northern Rus and comes to realize that she can see the Charity, but so can her stepmother Anna. But the difference is that Vasya embraces the Charity and Anna casts them aside as demons. When the town starts turning away from their old ways and offerings to the Charity, Vasya takes it upon herself to keep the Charity alive and to save her town from great evil. I really loved The Bear and the Nightingale, and I cannot wait to see where Vasya's story is going to go in The Girl in the Tower. I know that she is going to be going to other parts of Rus, and it's going to be exciting to expand this world and see what other adventures await her, and I really cannot wait to read The Girl in the Tower and The Winter of the Witch. One of the reasons I'm excited to read these books is because of Katherine Arden's writing style and how atmospheric it is and how you feel like you're a part of the story. I just really love Vasya as a character, and I love the other side characters that help her along in the journey, and this world that Katherine Arden has built is so fantastical but grounded in history, and it's just really interesting to read about. The next series that I really need to continue on with is the Throne of Glass series. I'm honestly really ashamed I haven't read this book, considering it is the last book in the series. That is Kingdom of Ash. This is by Sarah J. Maas. I've read all of the other books in the series, and this is the only one I have left. I even have it on audio. I got it the day it came out, and I just still haven't picked it up. So this book has been out since 2018, and I don't know why I haven't picked it up yet. It's, like I said, 2019 was a really rough reading year, and I definitely need to finish this series because I want to know what happens. But I won't say much about where this book is going. Throne of Glass follows Celaena Sardothien, who was renowned to be the best assassin, but she is currently residing in the salt mines of Endovier, where she is a prisoner. When the prince comes and makes her a deal, compete in a competition to be the king's assassin, Celaena has no choice but to accept it for her freedom. While she's competing against 23 other assassins for this job, something lurks in the castle and is killing off the competition one by one. You would think this would be a good thing, but something doesn't seem right, and Celaena takes it upon herself to figure out what. This series has developed so far beyond that first book that I can't really talk about what is happening in this last book at all, but I am really excited to pick this up and figure out where her story ends. The next series I need to continue on with is the His Dark Materials series by Philip Pullman. I read The Golden Compass last year and I really enjoyed it, and I want to continue on with the story with The Subtle Knife. And The Subtle Knife picks up where The Golden Compass ends off and continues Lyra's story in the hunt for Dust. I really love the world that Philip Pullman has created and his characters. Lyra is a fantastic main character, and the intrigue on Dust and how this world works really keeps me interested, and I'm really excited to pick up this next book. I keep saying that. Of course I'm excited. That's why I'm making this video. I really want to see where Lyra's story continues on from here and how her hunt for Dust is going to continue, especially with the developments of the very end of The Golden Compass. The next book I need to read is The Well of Ascension by Brandon Sanderson, which is the sequel to Mistborn or The Final Empire. This is a high fantasy series that follows Ven, who's a street urchin, and running with the wrong crowd. She has powers that she doesn't quite understand. One day when one of the gang's cons goes wrong, they are hunted down, and in swoops Kelsier, who saves them. Kelsier comes to Ven and says that he will teach her about her powers as long as she joins his ragtag group of people who are trying to take down the Lord Ruler and overthrow his empire. The first book was absolutely captivating, and the world is so rich and interesting. It's kind of a very typical fantasy world with very untypical magic, and the characters feel so real. I started listening to Well of Ascension on audio with my husband, but I don't think that the audiobook was the way for me to consume this story, and I wasn't really retaining the information. So I want to pick this book up physically to continue on with the story of what happens next after the first book. The first book is kind of a self-contained story, but this builds upon the world and builds upon what happens at the very end of the final battle, and I am very intrigued to see what is going to happen in this world, because knowing Sanderson, it's going to be a huge twist. The next book I need to read is Kingsbane by Claire Legrand. This is the sequel to Furyborn. Furyborn is told in two separate timelines. In the first timeline, we follow Riel, who is rumored to be the Sun Queen of an ancient prophecy, but she has to pass 7 different trials to prove that she is the Sun Queen. If she can't pass the 7 different trials, she'll be deemed the Blood Queen, the one who is supposed to destroy the entire world. The second timeline takes place 1,000 years after Rael's, and we follow Eliana. The second timeline is told 1,000 years after Rael's, and we follow Eliana, who when one day her mother goes missing, she teams up with someone else to try and find her mother. But Eliana seems to be a little out of her depths when truths are revealed about her past. I loved Furyborn when I read it. I absolutely loved it and raved about it, and I was so excited for Kingsbane to come out. And then I didn't pick it up on release day. And then I waited too long to read it. And now, admittedly, I think I have to reread Furyborn before I can continue on with the series, because I don't remember all of the details of Furyborn, and I think it's important that I do going into Kingsbane. I am really excited to see where this story keeps going, because the two timelines and how they intersect are very intriguing. Because these two timelines are related, I'm excited to see how they are going to continue and hopefully converge at some point, and what is going to happen to both of these characters. I really enjoy both of their timelines individually, but I think that both of them are going to add to a greater story, and I'm excited to see where Claire Legrand is going to take that bigger story. The next book that I need to read is Midnight Secrets by Ellen Dugan. This series follows a family of witches in their everyday lives, and how witchcraft can affect how they live, what they do, and their relationships. And this 5th book follows Amanda, who is a librarian at the local library. But she has a secret that she is keeping from a lot of people. Actually, she has a few. One of them is that she is actually one of the Daughters of Midnight, and the other is that she is a guardian tasked to defend their town. I really enjoy this fun magical contemporary series, and I read 4 of the books last year. I just didn't get around to this 5th book. Next, I'm going to talk about a few books that I have started reading but put down for one reason or another. The first being The Last Days of Magic by Mark Tompkins. Why can't I say Tompkins? The first being The Last Days of Magic by Mark Tompkins. I initially saw this book at Target and it caught my eye. The title, the cover, and then I read the dust jacket and I was really intrigued. So I picked it up and I started reading it back in 2017. But I put it down because I was in a bit of a slump, and I just haven't picked it up since. And I really want to continue on with this story because what I've read so far is really enjoyable and really intriguing. This story follows 2 twins who are born to unite the Celts and the fairies. But other people have different ideas and are trying to stop these twins at any cost. The next book is Circe by Madeline Miller. I picked this book up last year and only got 26 pages into it because, and I'm going to say it once again, 2019 was not a great reading year for me. I don't know why I stopped reading this book. Like, I honestly don't. I really enjoyed the 26 pages I read, and I was very interested in Cersei's character. And with all the hype surrounding this book and my love for mythology, I can't believe that I put it down. But I did, and we're here. So this book is at the highest of priority levels for me. So many people I watch on BookTube love this book, and I really, really want to enjoy it as well and get into the story of Cersei. This book follows Cersei, who is a goddess in Greek mythology, but her story was written off and never really told in actual myths. So Madeline Miller gave her a story, one that involves her discovering who she truly is and fighting to protect what she loves. The next book I have on this list is City of Girls by Elizabeth Gilbert. I started this book in May of last year. Then I read a book that put me in a huge slump in June, and I stopped picking this book up. This book follows Vivian, who is recounting her life as she grows older to someone who wants to know one vital question: what does my father mean to you? So Vivian takes her all the way back to the beginning, when she was a college girl sent to live with her aunt in New York City in 1942. And it chronicles her adventures in New York City and her growing up. I got 20% through this book before I put it down, and I was absolutely loving it. I loved the characters and the talk of New York City in the 1940s, and watching Vivian grow into who she is and learn lessons along the way. And I'm excited to see where the rest of the book goes, because I know that Vivian is so young at the beginning of this book that she has so much more to learn and to discover. She has so much more growing to do, and I want to figure out her connection to the dad at the beginning of the book and these different characters and her relationships along the way. Next, I'm going to be talking about series that I would like to start this year. And the first is Sea Fire by Natalie C. Parker. This book follows Caldonia, who is the captain of her own ship, and everyone on this ship is a woman, and a woman who's been hurt by the same guy, and they're all seeking revenge. But when a guy wants to join their crew to get revenge on the same guy they want to get revenge on, Caldonia has to make tough decisions and decide whether or not to let him on the crew and to trust someone who isn't her crew. I've heard really great things about this book, and I'm intrigued to see where this book and this series are going to go and the twists and turns it's going to take. It sounds like a really fun sea adventure with a lot of female empowerment, and I'm really hoping that I can add it to one of my TBRs soon. The next book is The Forgotten Garden by Kate Morton. This is a historical fiction book that follows a girl from Australia in 1913 who is setting out to find out her true identity because she's adopted. But it's not until her granddaughter takes up the search that all the puzzle pieces start to fit together. It seems like a really interesting book about self-discovery and learning who your ancestors are, told in 2 different timelines, and I'm excited to delve into this book. The next book is The Wicked Saints by Emily A. Duncan. This is a YA fantasy that I'm really interested in the world and the characters and the magic system and how the storyline is going to play out, and I want to really like it so that I can pick up the next book and continue on with the series. In Wicked Saints, we follow 3 different people who have to team up together to try and overtake the king. The next book is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. This book is currently a standalone, but there is a second book in the works. I don't know much about this book other than it deals with color magic, 2 sisters, and one who is supposed to marry the God King, the other who is not happy that the one sister is supposed to marry the God King. I know that this has a lot to do with their sisterly bond. Knowing Sanderson, this is probably a very rich fantasy world with a lot of intrigue. Continuing on with my quest to read Sanderson this year, I have The Way of Kings. This boy is chonky. Clocking in at just over 1,000 pages, this has to be the biggest book on my shelf and the biggest book that I'm trying to read this year. And it's not the only one. I am trying to read all 3 of the Stormlight Archives before the 4th one comes out in November. You better say prayers for me now, because it's almost April and I haven't started it. And this is so big. I actually do not know a lot about this book other than one of our main characters' name is Kaladin, and my husband really, really loves this book. Like, enough to reread all 3 of them every year. So I want to go into this book not knowing a lot so that I can be surprised by where we're going in the plot and to just dive into this world. The next book I have on here are Grimm's Fairy Tales by the Brothers Grimm. These fairy tales include some of our favorite classics, including Rapunzel and Little Red Riding Hood, Snow White, Sleeping Beauty, Rumpelstiltskin. I'm excited to read the original tales as I have never read them, and I know that these are gruesome and they differ a lot from the Disney tales, and I just really want to know the original tales. So with over 200 tales in this book, I am sure that I will have a favorite by the end. The next book on this list is Mythos by Stephen Fry. In this book, Stephen Fry retells all the great Greek myths in his own Stephen Fry-ish way. I'm excited to read Stephen Fry's take and retelling of these Greek myths, as I know a few of them, but I am not like an expert at Greek myths, and I would like to know more about them. The next book on this list is Beartown by Fredrik Backman. This follows a town that is very hockey-centric. One day, one of the star hockey players is accused of rape, and it turns this town inside out. This follows different members of the town and how they're dealing with the accusations and realizing that their hockey team members may not be so perfect. The next two books on here kind of go hand in hand, and the first one is the graphic novels of Grimm and Grimm the Icy Touch. The graphic novels and Icy Touch are both continuations of the hit NBC series, which just happens to be my favorite show of all time. This is the complete bind-up of all the Grimm graphic novels, and I'm really interested to see how they continue on this show in not only graphic novel format, but in novel format as well. The show follows Nick Burkhart, who is a Portland police detective, when one day he finds out that he has a secret that he didn't know about, and it's a power that involves seeing the creatures hidden in some people, and he is called a Grimm. And the people he can see are called Vessen, and they can vogue freely between their animal states and their human states. This is honestly a really interesting take on a police TV show, and I really love it. It involves a lot of fairy tales, especially Grimm fairy tales, but also folklore from other cultures as well. And I love seeing his group of friends take on the bad guys. And if you haven't watched this show, you really should, because it is fantastic. And I don't exactly know what stories the graphic novels follows. The Icy Touch follows a Vessen drug smuggling operation who is forcing other Vessen to join them or they die. And so Nick is on the case to get to their leader and dismantle this operation. This last book I left till the end because I am trying to read everything in its little universe this year, and considering it's almost April, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm hoping to just get at least a few books in, and that is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. This book follows Claire after World War II has just ended and she was a nurse during the war. She is trying to reconnect with her husband Frank, and so they go on a vacation to Inverness, Scotland. There they learn about Frank's heritage, and in a weird twist of fate, Claire's thrown back to 1743 Scotland, where she is saved from attack by the Clan Mackenzie, and they take her in and show her their ways. I've started watching the TV show of this, and I love the show, and so I really want to read the books. I haven't even finished the first season of Outlander because as time got closer and closer for me to read the book, I wanted to stop and read the book first before I continued on with the show. So I'm really excited to be picking this one up soon and hopefully trying to read all 20 books that are in the Outlander verse. Thankfully, some of those are novellas and shorter books that I can get through. And while this one isn't too thick by any means, I know that they get bigger as they go along. And I'm excited to follow Claire's journey throughout life and figuring out how to navigate Scotland. But I'm really intrigued to see how this first book plays out and continue along with the series if I love it. So there you have it. Those are the 20 books that I want to read this year. A lot of them are a series. A lot of them, looking at the stack now, are very chunky books. So I have my work cut out for me, and I will be trying to fit all these books into TBRs wherever I can and prioritizing them on my reading list. Don't forget to like this video or subscribe if you want to see more from me. I have all my social media links down below if you want to be friends on any other platform. That is all for me. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!